Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I moved to this country 3 years ago to study physical therapy. The transition wasn't easy, learning a new language, adapting to a different culture, and being away from my family for the first time. But I was determined to make it work. Exercise had always been my stress relief, so joining a local gym was one of the first things I did after settling in. This incident happened when I was 19, about a year into my studies. I developed a solid routine at the gym, usually going during off-peak hours to avoid the crowd since I was still somewhat self-conscious about my accent and speaking abilities. That day, I headed to the separate exercise room, a small space dedicated to stretching and body weight exercises. As a physical therapy student, I knew the importance of proper warm-up, especially since I'd previously suffered a minor injury from skipping it. The room was empty when I arrived, which was perfect. I was about 15 minutes into my stretching routine when three middle-aged men walked in. They were dressed in expensive workout gear and had that air of entitlement about them. I immediately turned off my headphones, a habit I developed after previously not hearing someone who needed to share equipment. At first, I heard them snickering and I tried to focus on my routine, but then their comments became impossible to ignore. One of them mockingly pointed out my stretches, saying to his friends that I probably thought I was training for the Olympics. His friends laughed along with him. The conversation shifted to their vacation plans, with one of them asking the others about potential destinations. When the second man suggested Greece, the first man immediately turned it into another opportunity to mock me. He made crude implications about me knowing about foreign men, suggesting I had gotten around. I felt my face getting hot, but I tried to maintain my composure. He didn't stop there. He continued making comments about me trying exotic cuisine, emphasizing the word in a way that made my skin crawl. Each comment was clearly aimed at me, making assumptions about my character just because I wasn't from here. The third man finally spoke up, telling him to stop and leave me alone. But the first man just brushed it off, claiming I couldn't hear him because of my headphones. That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, turned around, and looked him straight in the eyes. I told him clearly that I could hear him. His face went from smug to ghost white in seconds. When he stammered, I repeated myself, adding that I could understand him perfectly well. I explained that I was there studying physical therapy, which was why I knew the importance of proper warm-up exercises. I finished by sarcastically commenting on his apparent expertise about foreign people. The other two men looked mortified. The third man quickly announced they were leaving, practically dragging the first man out. As they hurried away, I overheard the second man angrily telling the first man that this would be their last workout together. He mentioned that his wife was friends with the gym owner's wife, and he didn't want to risk getting banned because of his friend's inappropriate behavior. The next day, the gym manager approached me during my workout. She had already heard about the incident from multiple sources, including the two other men who had been present. She apologized profusely for what had happened and assured me that they took such behavior very seriously. She explained that they had reviewed the security footage and, combined with previous complaints about the same member, had decided to terminate his membership immediately. The incident actually led to some unexpected positive changes in my life. One of the staff members who heard about what happened turned out to be from my home country. She introduced me to a community of international students who worked out at the gym, and we started having weekly group training sessions. It helped me feel less isolated and more confident in speaking up for myself and others. I still go to that gym, and now I'm much more confident about taking up space and calling out inappropriate behavior when I see it. I'm a single dad of 3 kids. My wife passed away 2 years ago, and since then, I've been trying my best to balance work and taking care of my children. They're 14, 11, and 8, and they're really good kids who help around the house a lot. Being a work-from-home dad means I often order takeout when I have important meetings or deadlines, and pizza is our go-to comfort food. Last Friday was hectic. I had back-to-back meetings until 7 p.m., and my oldest had a big test the next day that they were studying for. I decided to order pizza for dinner since I couldn't cook. We usually order from this local pizza place that's been our favorite since we moved here 3 years ago. The delivery was supposed to arrive around 7:30 p.m. I was wrapping up my last meeting when I heard the doorbell ring. My middle child went to answer it since I was still on the call, and they know the drill. Take the pizza, say thank you, and close the door. We have a doorbell camera installed which has been super helpful for security, especially since we live in a relatively quiet area. After my meeting ended, I went to check on the kids and the pizza, but something felt off. The pizza box was open and there was clearly a slice missing. At first I thought maybe one of the kids couldn't wait, but they all denied taking any pizza. That's when I decided to check the doorbell camera footage. What I saw made my blood boil. The delivery driver, who I'll call Karen, had delivered our pizza and then stood there talking to our camera. She ranted about how she remembered delivering to our house 2 weeks ago and complained that my kid hadn't tipped her then. She announced that she was going to take her tip for both deliveries right now. She then opened the pizza box, grabbed a huge slice, and took a big bite while staring directly at the camera. She even had the audacity to wave at it before leaving. My middle child came to me looking upset and told me that when they opened the door, Karen had been really mean and had practically thrown the pizza box at them. I was furious. Not only had she stolen food meant for my children, but she had also intimidated my kid. I immediately called the pizza place and spoke with the manager. I offered to send them the video footage, which they readily accepted. Within an hour, they called back to inform me that she had been terminated and that they would send us fresh pizzas free of charge. Around 9 p.m., while we were all in the living room watching a movie, we heard a loud crash. Karen had come back and thrown a massive rock through our front window. Glass shattered everywhere, and my kid started screaming. My youngest was crying and the other two were trying to comfort them while I called the police. I frantically explained to the dispatcher that the same person who was just fired from the pizza place for stealing our food had now vandalized our home, and I begged them to hurry. I described Karen to the police and they assured me they would search the area. Thankfully, she hadn't gotten far. They found her just a few blocks away, still carrying more rocks in her bag. When they arrested her, she was screaming and ranting about how I had ruined her life and how she would make me pay. Apparently, Karen had been fired from 3 different delivery services in the past 6 months for confrontational behavior with customers. She was charged with vandalism, theft, food tampering, and making threats. The pizza place's insurance covered our broken window, and they also gave us free pizza for a month as compensation for the incident. When I received a call from the district attorney's office, they told me that due to Karen's previous record and the clear evidence from our doorbell camera, she was facing serious charges. She ended up getting sentenced to 6 months in jail plus mandatory anger management classes. My kids were shaken for a while, especially my youngest, but we used this as an opportunity to install better security measures around the house. We added more cameras and motion sensor lights, which actually helped us all feel safer in general. The local pizza place also changed their delivery policies, requiring all their drivers to wear body cameras for everyone's protection. The whole neighborhood heard about the incident, and we received a lot of support from our community. Several neighbors even installed their own security cameras after hearing our story. Oh, and I heard that after Karen served her time, she moved to a different state. When I dropped out of college, I kept bouncing between retail jobs, and that left me feeling trapped and unfulfilled. My cousin, who worked in hospital administration, suggested I try applying for the environmental services position. She told me I'd be moving around all day with no sitting at a desk, just constant activity. It sounded perfect for someone like me who couldn't stay still. The job involved collecting and disposing of trash and medical waste throughout the hospital. My supervisor was understanding and partnered me with an experienced worker who showed me all the shortcuts and efficient routes through the building. We worked in pairs, each taking different sections, and I usually had my areas cleared by lunch. Everything was going great until they hired this new guy to replace my retiring coworker. Let's just say he had a particular talent for making others believe his lies. The first week seemed fine. He was friendly enough, always had a story to tell in the break room about his previous jobs or his family. But then things started going wrong. I'd show up for my shift and find bins overflowing with trash, some looking like they hadn't been emptied for days. When I asked him about the waste collection problems, he apologized and claimed the cart was having issues, saying maintenance had promised to fix it that day. Later, when I checked with maintenance, I discovered no one had reported any cart problems. The next day was worse. Medical waste bins were reaching capacity and nurses were starting to complain. When I confronted him about it, he made up another excuse about the elevator being down when he tried to get to that floor. I pointed out that I had used that elevator multiple times the previous day, and he quickly responded by suggesting it must have been fixed right after his shift. I reported the issues to our supervisor several times, but she explained they needed concrete proof of neglect before they could take any action. He was smooth, always had documentation for his breaks, always seemed to be walking purposefully somewhere when management was around. After 3 weeks of this, I was at my breaking point. My workload had doubled because I was basically covering his sections too, trying to keep the hospital clean. That's when I noticed something that gave me an idea. The West Wing was scheduled to close for the weekend for some maintenance work. On Friday afternoon, I took photos of every overflowing bin in that section, making sure to capture the dates on some discarded papers visible in the trash. The wing would be empty, no new trash would be generated. Monday morning I came in early. Every bin was exactly as I'd left it Friday afternoon. Not a single piece of trash had been moved. I took new photos, carefully matching the angles of my Friday shots. I went straight to my supervisor's office and told her I needed to show her something. I laid out the photos side by side on her desk. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the timestamps, and she immediately ordered someone to get him into her office. When he walked in, he started his usual routine, claiming he had cleared those bins the night before and they must have filled up again that morning. The supervisor shut him down by pointing out that the wing had been closed all weekend with no one there. When I showed him the dated photos, his face went completely blank. That's when the supervisor revealed they had security footage showing him entering the supply closet on the 3rd floor at the start of every shift and not emerging for hours. She demanded an explanation from him. It turned out he'd found a perfect hiding spot with good Wi-Fi signal where he'd spend his shifts watching videos and playing games on his phone. He'd only emerge when he knew management would be around. Not only was he fired, but his lies during the investigation led to him being blacklisted from working anywhere in the hospital network. He tried applying to other hospitals in the area, but word had spread about his work ethic. They reviewed my performance during those difficult weeks and gave me a raise for basically doing 2 people's jobs. After my long-term relationship ended, I needed a fresh start. 5 years of living together, only to discover they had been cheating for the last 6 months. It was too much. I couldn't stay in our shared apartment anymore where every corner held a memory. So when I got a promotion at work that could support a better place, I jumped at the chance. I found this amazing apartment on the top floor of a modern complex. The rent was a bit steep, but the views were worth it. The only catch? I had to move in quickly because my old lease was ending and the new place needed some work. Specifically, the previous tenant had left the walls in an awful state. The first few weeks were a blur of working overtime and trying to fix up the place in my spare time. On my last painting day, my cousin came over to help. We knew we had to finish that night because I had meetings all week and the paint fumes were giving me headaches during video calls. I told my cousin we just had one more wall to go and we could do this. They seemed worried about how late it was getting, but I explained that I couldn't take another day of the fumes during work. We were almost done when we heard knocking from below at around 2 a.m. The ladder had made some noise when we moved it, but we were literally 5 minutes from finishing. I suggested we just wrap it up quickly. We did, and I thought that was it. The apartment looked great, and I was finally settling into my new life. Then, a month later, I got this official-looking letter from the building management company. I read it twice, not believing what I was seeing. They were accusing me of regular nighttime construction and using my washing machine in the middle of the night. The painting incident was one time, and I had never once done laundry late at night. I work early mornings. I decided to be mature about it and let it go. If there was another complaint, I'd address it then. But a few weeks later, my sister came over for our weekly movie night. We were watching a thriller when she accidentally knocked over her empty glass bottle. My sister immediately apologized for the accident. Before I could even respond, 3 angry knocks came from below. Not even a minute had passed. I expressed my disbelief at their quick reaction, and my sister commented on how sensitive they seemed to be. That was my breaking point. If they wanted to play this game, I could play too. The rules said no noise between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Perfect. I normally did my laundry in the afternoon, but I decided to make some changes to my schedule. I bought a timer for my washing machine and programmed it perfectly. Every Sunday morning, it would start exactly at 6 a.m. when quiet hours ended. The spin cycle made quite a rhythm against the floor, all totally within the rules, of course. After 2 weeks of this, I was taking out my trash when I ran into my downstairs neighbor in the hallway. She looked exhausted. She asked if I really had to do laundry so early on weekends. I responded cheerfully that I was just following the building rules, making sure to start exactly at 6 a.m. since I wouldn't want anyone to complain to management about me again. Her face turned red as she tried to explain that they could hear the machine. I cut her off, telling her that I completely understood being sensitive to noise, which was why it made total sense to file complaints and bang on the ceiling instead of having a conversation about any issues. I added that I was just trying to be a good neighbor and follow all the rules strictly. I gave her my brightest smile and continued to the trash room. The next weekend, I added a second load of laundry at 6 a.m. I had some extra cleaning to do after all. Strangely enough, I haven't received any more complaints about noise, and the angry ceiling knocking has completely stopped. I guess some people just need help understanding the value of direct communication. I still do my early morning laundry though. It's become part of my Sunday routine, and I wouldn't want to disappoint my neighbors by changing it now. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.